The rain in Manhattan doesn't wash things clean, it just makes the grime look more expensive. My name is Clara, and I've spent 3 long, grueling years as the personal assistant to Julian Vane, the youngest billionaire in the city, and a man the press calls the Obsidian Shadow. People think working for a man like Julian is a dream of private jets, 5-star galas, and rubbing shoulders with the world's elite. They don't see the fine print in the employment contract. They don't see the way he looks at the moon with a hunger that borders on physical pain, or the way he refuses to be touched by anyone, even his own security team. Julian is a man of absolute terrifying control, but lately that control has been fraying at the edges. My job was simple: keep his schedule tight, keep his secrets tighter, and never, under any circumstances, enter his private office after the sun went down. But tonight, the city was under a flash flood warning, and Julian had left a vital contract on his desk, one that would decide the fate of Vane Industries and the livelihoods of thousands of people. I had the spare key, and I had a choice: risk his legendary temper, or let his empire crumble. I chose the risk. The penthouse was silent, the air heavy with the scent of expensive sandalwood and something sharper, something that smelled like a thunderstorm trapped in a glass jar. I pushed open the heavy mahogany doors to his office, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The room was dark, save for the silver light of the full moon bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the city below in shades of bruised purple and steel. The contract was right there, sitting on a desk carved from a single piece of obsidian that seemed to drink the light. I reached for it, my fingers brushing the cool, heavy paper, but then I heard it. A low, guttural vibration that wasn't a growl, but certainly wasn't human either. I turned slowly, my breath hitching in my throat. Julian wasn't sitting in his chair. He was hunched over by the window, his back to me, his expensive tailored suit jacket shredded into ribbons on the floor. His spine was shifting, the vertebrae clicking and snapping like a series of gunshots in the quiet room. I should have run. I should have screamed. But the sheer, terrifying beauty of the transformation held me frozen in place. His skin was rippling with a dark, velvet fur, and his muscles were expanding with a strength that looked like it would tear his human frame apart. "Oh, Clara," he gasped, his voice a distorted, gravelly version of the smooth baritone I heard every morning in board meetings. "I told you, never. After dark." He turned his head, and I saw them. The molten gold eyes that didn't belong to a billionaire, but to a king of the wild. He didn't look like a monster from a horror movie. He looked like an ancient god forced into a modern world of glass and steel. The contract fell from my hand, fluttering to the floor like a dying bird. "You're one of them," I whispered, the myths and legends of my childhood suddenly manifesting in the man I had served for years. He stood up, towering over me now, his height nearly reaching the ceiling. He was a creature of shadow and silver, a massive black wolfman who radiated a heat so intense I could feel it from across the room. He didn't charge. Where he took a step toward me, his movements fluid and predatory, yet strangely hesitant. "I am the alpha of the Crescent Pack, Clara. Vane Industries is just the mask I wear to feed my people in a world that has forgotten how to hunt. Every merger, every acquisition, it was all for the pack. We are not just a company, we are a survival strategy. And tonight, the moon is too strong for the mask." I backed up until I hit the cold glass of the window, the city lights below me feeling 1,000,000 miles away. "What are you going to do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "The rules of our kind say I can't let a human walk away with this knowledge," he said, his golden eyes searching mine with a terrifying intensity. "But you've been loyal for 3 years. You've seen the parts of me no one else bothered to look at. You've seen the man, not just the money. I've watched you fight for this company as if it were your own blood. Maybe it's because it is." He reached out, a clawed hand hovering inches from my face. I didn't flinch. For some reason, I felt more safe in that room with a beast than I had in the boardrooms with the men who wanted to take his crown. I realized then that Julian hadn't been protecting his secret from me. He had been protecting me from his world. But the secret was out now, and the silence of the penthouse was shattered by the sound of the elevator dings. Julian's rivals, men who didn't know about the wolf, but knew everything about the money, were coming up. They had hired silver-armed mercenaries to stage a hostile takeover that was never meant to have survivors. Julian shifted his gaze to the door, a snarl finally ripping from his throat that vibrated the glass behind me. "They think they are hunting a man," he whispered to me, his fur bristling as his claws extended. "Let's show them what happens when they corner a king." He didn't hide behind his desk. He didn't run for the panic room. He stood in front of me, a wall of fur and fury, as the doors burst open. The next 10 minutes were a blur of silver flashes, the scent of ozone, and the terrifying, glorious sound of a predator protecting his own. When it was over, Julian stood among the ruins of his office, his chest heaving, his golden eyes slowly fading back to the dark blue I knew. He didn't look at the men on the floor. He looked at me, a silent question in his eyes. "The secret is out, Clara. The council will come for us both now. I can't keep you as an assistant anymore. The world I live in is a blood-soaked jungle hidden by neon lights." He reached out, his hand human again, but still carrying the heat of the wolf. "But I could use a Luna who knows how to handle a board of directors. Someone who can hunt in the day so I can lead at night." I looked at the contract on the floor, then back at the man who was both a monster and a king. I took his hand. "I think I can manage that," I said. The weeks that followed were a surreal blend of corporate strategy and supernatural politics. By day, I was the newly appointed COO of Vane Industries, managing the fallout of the attempted robbery and restructuring the board to remove the traitors who had tried to kill us. I was ruthless, using Julian's reputation as a shadow to intimidate our enemies. By night, I was being initiated into the Crescent Pack, a secret society that existed in the cracks of the modern world. Julian didn't just take me to his bed. He took me to the forest, showing me the hidden valleys upstate where the pack truly lived. I saw the children playing in the moonlight, the elders telling stories of the Great Shift, and the warriors training with a discipline that made the Silver Order look like amateurs. I realized that the billionaire Julian Vane was a role he played so his people didn't have to live in poverty. Every dollar he made was funneled into land trusts, protecting the forests from developers, and ensuring his pack had a sanctuary in a world that was shrinking every day. But our peace was short-lived. The High Council of Alphas, a group of traditionalists who believed humans were nothing more than cattle or collateral damage, and who caught wind of our arrangement. They summoned Julian to the subterranean chambers beneath the city, a place where the air was thick with the scent of wet stone and old blood. I went with him, despite the warnings that a human in the council chamber was unheard of. We stood before the 5 great alphas, men and women whose power was so ancient it felt like a physical pressure in the room. "Julian Vane," the elder alpha, a man named Malachi, boomed. "You have brought a human into our sanctum. You have shared our blood secrets with a creature who cannot even shift. This is a violation of the first law, a betrayal of everything we are. You have allowed a sheep into the den of lions." Julian stood tall, his hand firmly in mine, his presence every bit as commanding as the elders. "The first law was written when we were at war with humanity," he countered, his voice echoing with the authority of the Crescent Pack. "But the world has changed. We are no longer hunters in the dark. We are leaders in the light. Clara has proven more loyal than many of our own kind. She has protected our assets, our secrets, and our lives. She is not a sheep. She is the strategist who keeps the den hidden." A murmur of shock went through the room. Fated mates between humans and wolves were rare, and they were often considered a sign of a weakening bloodline. Malachi sneered, his eyes glowing a sickly green. "A fated mate must be able to defend the pack. How can a human protect us from the hunters? How can she stand beside you when the silver starts to fly? She is a liability, a weakness that we cannot afford." I stepped forward then, in drawing the silver-etched dagger Julian had given me, not for protection, but as a symbol of my intent. "I may not have a wolf," I said, my voice steady despite the terrifying presence of the elders. "But I have the keys to your bank accounts. I have the legal deeds to your territories, and I have the power to reveal your existence to a world that isn't as afraid of monsters as it used to be. You think power is just teeth and claws? Power is the pen. Power is the secret. And I am the one who holds yours. If you strike at Julian, you strike at the foundation of your own survival. I have set up digital deadman switches. If I don't check in every 12 hours, the location of this chamber and the identities of every alpha in this room will be sent to every major news outlet on the planet. You are not just fighting a girl. You are fighting the 21st century." The council went silent. They were warriors, yes, but they were also pragmatists. They knew that in the modern world, a lawsuit or a leaked video was more dangerous than a silver bolt. Julian looked at me with a pride that made my heart swell. He turned back to the council. "We are not asking for your permission," he said. "We are telling you that the Crescent Pack is changing. We are building a bridge between our worlds. You can either walk across it with us, or you can stay in the dark and watch as the world leaves you behind. Clara is my mate, and she is the future of the Crescent Pack." The elders deliberated for hours, their voices a low rumble behind the heavy stone doors that sounded like a coming storm. When they returned, their verdict was one of cautious acceptance. We were to be the test case. If we could maintain the secret and protect the pack, our union would be recognized. If we failed, the consequences would be absolute. We walked out of the council chambers and back into the bustling streets of New York City, the sun just beginning to rise over the skyline, painting the skyscrapers in gold. Julian looked at me, the billionaire mask firmly back in place, but his eyes were still glowing with that molten gold. "You were incredible back there," he whispered, pulling me close as the city woke up around us. "I think you're more of a wolf than half the warriors in that room. You have the heart of a predator, Clara." I smiled, leaning into his strength, feeling the steady thrum of his heart. "I just know how to negotiate, Julian. It's what you hired me for." We headed back to the penthouse, the city unaware that its future was being shaped by a king and his human queen. The secret was still there, hidden in the shadows of the skyscrapers, but for the first time, it wasn't a burden. It was a promise of a new world. Months passed, and the integration of our two worlds became a delicate dance. I spent my mornings in high-stakes meetings with international investors, and my evenings in the moonlight, learning the language of the forest. The pack began to trust me, not just as Julian's mate, but as their advocate. I used the resources of Vane Industries to set up a private healthcare system for the wolves, one that understood their unique biology. I established a scholarship fund for the pack's children, ensuring they could navigate the human world if they chose. We were creating a new kind of pack, one that was as comfortable in a boardroom as it was in a forest clearing. Julian and I were no longer just a billionaire and his assistant. We were the architects of a revolution. However, the shadow of Malachi still loomed. He wasn't one to give up easily. He began to seed dissent among the other packs, whispering that Julian was becoming too human, that the Crescent Pack was losing its edge. He staged small skirmishes on our borders, testing our defenses. But he underestimated me. I didn't send wolves to fight his warriors. I sent private investigators to find his offshore accounts. I sent forensic accountants to trace his influence. I dismantled his power base without ever firing a single shot. By the time he realized what was happening, his own pack was turning against him, yet realizing that his traditionalism was leading them toward poverty while the Crescent Pack was thriving. In a final, desperate move, Malachi challenged Julian to a trial of strength in the ancient traditions. Julian agreed, but he added a condition: a trial of wits to follow. Malachi laughed, thinking the second part was irrelevant. He was wrong. Julian defeated him in the arena, his wolf form a blur of obsidian power that left Malachi broken in the dirt. And then I stepped forward for the trial of wits. I presented the evidence of Malachi's secret dealings with the very hunters he claimed to hate, the silver he had been taking to sell out rival packs. The council didn't just strip him of his rank, they exiled him. Julian and I stood together on the balcony of our penthouse, looking out over the city that was now truly ours. We had survived the corporate sharks and the ancient wolves. We had built something that no one thought possible. I wasn't Clara the assistant anymore. I was Clara the Luna, the queen of the Crescent Pack, and the COO of the city's most powerful empire. "The moon looks beautiful tonight," I said, leaning my head on Julian's shoulder. He didn't answer with words. He just pulled me closer, his golden eyes reflecting the city lights. We were no longer hiding in the shadows. We were the ones who owned them.